Hi everyone, Jonathan Armstrong here with MODogma.com. I'm an environment artist working in the video game industry, and I will be presenting a series of free art tutorials online. I hope you enjoy them. Today I'm going to show you the power of masking in Photoshop. These are some tricks that I've learned over the years, and I like having the flexibility of being able to change and alter layers without having to start from scratch again. With a lot of other texturing and other people's processes, they'll usually merge layers or rasterize or even flatten the whole texture on certain parts. And this is troublesome if you want to go back and say change a certain element like a text, decal or something like that. And for this technique with using masking, you can preserve all those details and still be able to change the layer if you wanted to. So let's begin. Okay, so this is a model that I created in Zbrush and then baked down low res mesh with normals and poly paint diffuse, and it's a robot arm. And today what we're going to do is just show off some mask techniques you can use to change this top rotating arm piece to a different color, and then having some more wear on certain parts of the model, and then how I created even these text decals on a lot of areas. So here's the texture in Photoshop. This is the original. So I'm going to go ahead and show you first of all how to use masking to set up a way to fix any kind of abnormalities you may have with rendering out your ambient occlusion or color maps, or even the normal map. Sometimes with X normal it has backface hits and things like that you might need to clean up. So here's the old way that most people usually do with setting up their ambient occlusion, is they'll take a layer that is a normal blend and they'll just set that layer to multiply. But as you can see, there's certain parts right here and right here where the ambient occlusion really doesn't hold up too well. So it's better to paint those out. But if you just started, say, color picking and trying to paint over this, it's gonna be bad because it's just selecting all the layers color. You can even go into settings in your eyedropper tool and go to all layers or current layer, but that is kind of cumbersome to me. So what I do is actually go to the folder, and you can actually set the blending mode on folders too, not just layers. So if it's normal, then it's just your normal ambient occlusion. Okay, I have the opacity set to 70. That's going to turn it back up to 100. So that's just the normal blending mode, but you can also set it to multiply. And then if you add a fixed layer on top of that, it'll still not multiply. Each layer individually is normal, so they stack on top of each other nicely, and they don't multiply like if you had another layer that you wanted to add for fixes. And so if you alt click this eye icon next to a layer, it'll show only that layer, and you get your eyedropper tool out and you can select a local color there, and then alt click again to go back to normal mode. And if you wanted to paint a fix there, it's still going to multiply just because of the way that this is set up if you are trying to stack layers. So most of the time what people will do, like I said again, the old way, is they're going to probably color pick and then do this on a separate layer, try to paint everything out. Change this again to all layers. Okay. I mean, you can use clone stamp too if you wanted to, and go to all layers again. maybe change the opacity to blend it, and then maybe even use a smudge or blur tool. Let's do the blur tool first, and we can hit it with the smudge. Okay, and this one too, I'm just going to do painting here without the actual clone stamp, because that's sometimes faster. Okay, and then we can smudge that. I'm kind of using a grunge brush right now, but I don't want to change it because I like that brush. But it's easy to just blur this stuff out to fix it. You can even go in and maybe erase it with certain parts out with opacity of maybe 20%, just to kind of take some of those edges away, and smudge again. Okay, so what people would usually do after that is they've got their layer with the fixes. What they're going to do is merge it down, which is the hotkey for that is Control E, and now it's just one layer, and then they're going to bring it and change the blending mode to multiply. So I mean, that will get the job done, but it's not going to be easy, and you're going to have to go back every time and change this. If you see new places that are wrong on the ambient occlusion like this, you're going to have to go back and set this back to normal, and then color pick and paint again, even with the UVs on. Control I was invert, and then change it to multiply. It's easier to see. Okay. I'm just going to delete some of this stuff out that I don't need. Okay. And then you would go merge that down again, and have to change it to multiply. So that's just time consuming. But with this new technique, what you do, again, you just set the layer mode, blend mode to multiply. Each layer is just normal. Create a new layer for your fixes. Then you can alt click again on the eye icon, select your color, alt click off, kind of just paint where you need it, and just go back and forth. Oh, didn't do it. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to step through this again. Sometimes that alt is hard, where it doesn't let you go back to show all layers again. Go back to these. Oh, it's fine. Okay, never mind. It is showing everything. So let's just do that again. I'm going to create a new layer, and then color pick from the original ambient occlusion, then paint, and color pick again, and then paint. And you can actually see what it's doing real time, which is cool. You don't have to go back and set multiply again every time. Okay, what else did I fix last time? Okay. Okay, this was the good one that I created. So I'm just going to continue on with this. This is my new layer. Alt click each time to toggle that. And paint on the new layer. So this is just an easy way to fix your ambient occlusion or any other maps without having to go back and forth every time. Smudge this. And I think you get the idea there. So that's one way to use. It's not quite a mask, but it's just a technique for layer blends. So now what I want to show you is using layer masking. So this is really cool, and I'm going to show this again, just the AO. And let's say we want to just add some fading to a certain part of the model where maybe there's weathering and it's getting hit more by sunlight or just natural time. Just lighting and lighting conditions and water dripping down it or whatnot is going to change certain parts of it to not have the same color tone, because you're not going to have the same color across everywhere, especially the older an object gets. So sometimes what you can do, a really crude way to do that would be just to color pick that and then change the actual, it's HSB sliders there. You can actually change the saturation to desaturate it and then increase the brightness if it's going to be the worn part, and you paint that in a new layer. And then just kind of go around, hit certain spots. Where it's going to be weathered. This is actually upside down, so the tops are going to be the ones that are hit by the discoloration. But with that, if you want to go back and just change something really quick, you probably have to erase it out. And you can't really change what the color looks like unless maybe you did like a hue saturation and colorize and actually started changing the effects of what that did, but still pretty limited. I'm not a big user or fan of that technique, so the way that I'm going to go about it is first creating a hue saturation layer over the full document and then decreasing the saturation on everything, and then creating a brightness contrast layer and increasing the brightness so that way you get desaturated and bright at the same time. Basically what I did with the color pick, and just select both these layers, Control G to group them, and now what you're going to do is these come built in with their own masks, but what's cool is that you can actually put masks on layers, and that's the most powerful aspect. So you can put a mask with this mask button, add mask, quick mask, and by default it's completely on. You can use Control I to invert that to black. So now none of this is showing up yet and then we're going to paint with a white brush to actually add the weathering details. Same thing again, just going in certain sections where you think that you want to add some wear to the object. Kind of highlighting some edges. I already have scratches painted on this, but this is kind of just some more wear around where the edges would be, have them pop a little more. Try to accentuate this edge, that facet. Okay, maybe something for this too. Slightly painted. What's cool about those hue saturations, you don't have to go and color pick every time from the actual object and then change the saturation of the brush and everything. It's going to get confusing. You're just painting and all the layers are the numbers. You're just trusting the numbers. The layers are doing all the work for you. Let's see what else. Okay. Change my brush back to white. Turn the UVs on, see where we're at. Okay, I'm going to hit this one, this piece. And then if you want to erase certain parts of the mask, you just change it to black. If you don't like how it looks, that's why this is powerful, because of just erasing. Say you want to create patterns, you can just erase certain parts of it, but it's still going to keep the overall shape that you painted. So where's a good example of that? Like say for this one, we don't want it bleeding past the edges. We can just erase only this part, or erase the mask where we think that the edge would be, but it's still going to keep all the other masking here. Same with this one. Okay, so anyway, get the idea. And a way that you want to quickly display the actual look of the mask is just on this thumbnail. There's a couple things you can do. Turn off the mask, you can shift click it. That's going to quickly turn it off. And toggle it back on, do the same thing. And to show the actual mask, you can alt click the thumbnail icon, so that way you can see what it's doing. The real time is much funner. You can see what you're doing, but if you really need to get in there and you want to make this pure white or something, you can tell if it's really white or not. So that's that part. Right now we're going to do something similar, but I'm going to actually change the color of a certain part of the object. using layer masks. So let's say this top part of the arm here, which was right here on the model, let's just say you want to make it red, kind of like this red on the back piece of this battery pack. I tend to have a lot of layers, so it's hard to kind of find exactly where this is, but I do have a lot of masks on the layers too. So if you want to get a layer name or what's directly under your cursor, you can just right click and it'll give you full option of layers, and they're all hierarchical. They're all in a hierarchy view, so you can see what's under the cursor at the time, but I try to name my layers too, that way I would know where it is, and sometimes you can tell if you remember if it was at the bottom or the top of your layer stack. So with this one, let's see, and then like I said, you can do the alt click on the thumbnail to see where the actual mask is. That helps too with this. Okay. Yep. Okay, just for fastness sake, I'm going to just click on these, alt click them. Okay, there it is. For some reason that doesn't show up here. Okay, pieces OT, there it is. So alt click on it, you can tell that this is part of that layer. And another feature of masks is if you just broadly select marquee here and go to your preview of the actual mask, it'll show you the actual area that you want to have highlighted. And what you can do now is do an intersection of the two. So if you want to remove this, say this white piece, you can actually go to Control Alt and click. It's going to come up with a little negative sign next to the hand, and so it's going to remove whatever in there. And if I start painting with white, or let's just say black, no white, okay, it's just going to affect the outside, but I'm not actually painting on the inside yet. Here, let me do gray so you can actually see. So if I go back to just my regular marquee select, I can actually paint gray over the whole thing, but if I don't want to affect the inside of this area, you can just do that. Control Alt click on the mask, and it's only going to select what's on the outside of this marquee selection. But what I want to do is just quickly get this shape only. Let's say you had the whole mask, but you don't want all these other shapes, you just want this one. So you would just quickly do a marquee selection here, and then you're going to do Control Shift Alt, and then that has an X icon on this hand, then click on the mask thumbnail. And what that does is intersect between those two masks. So you're just broadly selecting which mask you want, and then you quickly define it down. And then go back to the preview, and we're just going to create a folder again with masking. So just, it still has your selection, just create your folder, and you're going to click the quick select mask, and it'll take whatever you have currently selected and add that to a mask, which is really cool. And so now let's say I want to turn this red. It's going to create a huge saturation layer, turn on colorize, turn up the saturation, change the blending style probably to color burn, and just play with the values a little bit. Maybe it's not color burn. Playing with some certain things here. Color burn, linear burn. Linear burn. Let's see what it was in here. Normal. Okay, so another thing with hue saturation layers is you can just copy them, and I already had one created, so I mean I could just change all these values if I wanted to set this layer blending to normal and then go back and forth. What does it say? 69 for saturation, and I think the hue is at 0 and lightness -21. But the fast way, if you already had something you liked and you're just trying to add it to another section of the texture, let's just name this new red. You can just alt click a layer, drag it into a folder, and now you have the exact same hue saturation layer. You can start from that as a kind of template if you wanted to maybe change it a little bit, change the hue on it or something, but how all the saturation and lightness, then that'd be really quick. So okay, we're just going to start with that and save this out to see where we're at. I still had this labels on last time. Okay, that's our original. Here's our edits. So we have some kind of this wear here that we painted in. That's the original. Here's the one with the wear. Pretty subtle, but it does the trick. And okay, let's say that maybe it's a little more complicated. I have a lot of UV shells on this model because everything's unique, unwrapped, and I'm trying to make this whole piece here, everything that's yellow I'm going to convert to red, but I don't really know where it's at in the UVs. Here's all my UVs, and Maya has this new feature where you can move the shells, translate them one whole unit, which is nice. It's not going to affect the actual UVs, you can just move them out of the way. And now I want to just select all these shells here, so just selecting a bunch of faces. Faces, faces, faces. Okay, so you think you're at a pretty good point there, probably have all the surfaces that you need. And then I'm going to do control right click to get up a marking menu, go to 2 UV, because Maya won't let you do this with faces mode, and then do it again, go to 2 shell, and then now you have all the UV shells of those objects. And now you're going to go back to face, control right click to face, and let's go back in on that mode to see. There's a couple I missed. I'm still in face mode here, so I can select them. And go to UVs again, to shell, and to face. Okay, one little last piece, I think. 2. Okay. Alright, so that looks good. What I'm going to do is go back to UV so it's easier to move, and then just move them out of the way by a translation of exactly 1, and then move the other ones, everything that I don't want, move those off the UV space, and then move the ones I do want back on, because what I'm going to do you're going to go in object mode, is render UV snapshot, but you can't do that. Only the UV shells and the UV space are going to be part of the snapshot. So I'm just going to get everything that I want. UV snapshot. Everything's fine here. Alright, okay. Go to Photoshop. Take my snapshot UVs. Here they are. Kind of sucks. Max actually has it where you can fill these with an alpha channel, but in Maya the only alpha is the edges, which is kind of useless. So what I'm going to do actually is take my magic wand selection, just select the broad black area, which is all the negative space, and then anything that I know kind of is a hole, select those two. Okay, then I'm going to do Control-Shift-I for invert, and then create a new layer, which is Control-Shift-In. Well, that's if you want to name it, but if I want to just create a quick new one, it's Control-Shift-Alt-In. Bam. And then let's just change this to some funky color red. Okay, and then to fill this selection with this current color, it's hotkey Alt and Delete, which I use a lot. And now I just want to copy and paste this to the other document. Just going to use this for a mask. So if you want to select the contents of a layer, just like selecting the contents of a mask, instead of sorry, actually it's the same thing. Okay, so you control click the actual thumbnail, and then you can just do Control C to copy, and then if you want to go to Control V to paste, it's going to be out of place, because what it's doing is taking the bounding box of just the selection, not the whole document, and trying to find whatever the center was and paste it wherever your cursor is, something like that. But I still have the selection made. The best way to do it, paste it in place, is Control-Shift-V. So that's going to be the exact space that I had copied it from the other document. Now, this isn't really what I need. I just need this for the mask. I'm going to do Control, click on the thumbnail, and this was part of my hue saturation layer. I'm just going to add that to here. So you can actually change the colors back to black and white. There's two ways to do this. You can either do the foreground color, which is the Alt Delete to fill, or if you had the white in the background, you can just do Delete, because the mask is kind of binary. It only knows one or the other, delete or add. If you change that to black, it's going to delete too, but the thing is, it's going to create these weird halos. So you just want to do that for the first time only, and not go back and change it every time. Or you can just select all this out, and then do a fill with black, and then do your selection again, and then do a fill with white. That way you know there's not going to be any weird fringing. Okay, I'll click on this again to get out of it. So I have my color changed on just that layer. New red. Let's see. Okay, my hue saturation, I already painted out this section. So that's another cool thing with mask, is if you have something you just want to paint out or in, you can go to your mask. I just put it on the hue saturation here, but it's not going to affect your layer mask, which is your overall. So I can just paint back in certain parts that I think are not going to be worn. Like say the paint's only chipping from the crevice, so it's kind of skipping across these edges. But it's not, if you paint over here, even though this is in or paint out, if I'm painting out over here, even though it's over the edge, and the hue saturation layer, it's not going to be over the edge in your overall layer mask. So this one's king, which is really nice. Okay, what else? Okay, so with your layer mask, let's go back to just the damage one. You can, another thing that's cool is if you want to select the amount of exposure or coverage of this mask, you can actually run in levels, which is Control L, and just change how much contrast you want in this mask. Pure white or pure black or something kind of in between, or shifting it. And you can see that real time, which is nice. So you can kind of tone it down if you wanted, or completely crank it up, which isn't really good, or you can do something in between, which is nice. Just wanted to show that to you. Off topic. Okay, go back to red. And let's just save this out to see where I'm at. Okay. One piece looks like it's missed. What's going on with that? It's not paying in for some reason. That's easy to fix. Okay, everything else looks fine. Thing is, the original bolts here, let me select those again, zoom to them, they're actually on this location, so they're yellow, but if I want to change this to red, it's going to affect all the other ones, and I don't want that. I only want them on one area. So what I can do is go back into Photoshop. This is just quick. And to copy, just use the marquee selector, polygon lasso. If you want to create a selection of the whole document with ambient occlusion, everything, then you can do Control Shift C for copy, and then Control Shift V for paste in place. So that's everything, because I don't want to have to deal with moving the ambient occlusion area and moving the mask area for everything. This is just quick. I need to get it done, and I'm going to change that to red. So go back into my new red layer, quickly turn the mask off so I can see where this is moved. Otherwise, if I move this, even though I have it selected here, you can't even tell where it's going. So I turn this off by shift clicking it, going back to this new bolt that I created, just moving that to an area. I can even get to exactly the same. Oops. Okay, here we go. And then just hold shift and drag, that way it'll stay in this left and right lateral motion, or you can go up and down if you just wanted to move the UVs without having to go up and down. You know they're going to be kind of in the exact same area. Turn back on the mask. Okay, select this selection for that layer, and then add that to the mask, which is Alt Delete for white. And I need to put that underneath the hue saturation layer. So now we have a red bolt. So I'll save that out. And I need to update the UVs. And I also need to update this texture. Okay, go to Hypershade. diffuse, right click, reload image file. It should have updated here. Okay, maybe save it again. Maybe I didn't save it as new. There we go. Okay, there it is. So take only these shells to UV and then just shift dragging again over here to about where you need it. I'm not trying to get it perfect, but pretty close. So now got that. Okay, this needs to be fixed here. Go back into Photoshop and do that really fast. I guess I messed up when I did the magic wand, but that's easy to fix. Okay, just gonna create a selection there and fill it with white. And let's just say that around, maybe the red was the first coat and then it scratched off. I mean, the red was the second coat, the yellow was the first coat, and the red scratching off back to the yellow. So I gotta tell where the edge is on the UVs, and I don't have UVs for that. Okay, I'm just gonna guess this one. So I'm just gonna paint away an area kind of on the edge where the paint's just chipping and flaking. Okay, there we go. Save that back out. Okay. Oh, forgot this piece, but this one's fixed now. I forgot this circle ring. Okay. I'm going to do the same process again here. So move these out by one and select the circle rings to these, to shell, and to face, and move them over to the UV space. And then go into object mode, render that out. Okay, and go back into Photoshop. I'm going to update that texture. Magic wand selection again. Get inside that. And do a Control Shift I for invert, create a new layer, Control Shift Alt N. You have to go to marquee select mode for this to work, because if you're kind of in brush mode and you do it, well, I guess it still works. Magic wand work, yeah, it still works. Okay, so just Alt Delete to fill with that color. We already have the selection, so Control C, go back to this document. Where's new red at? Okay. And then Control Shift V, paste in place, and select that by control clicking on the thumbnail and going back to the mask. And then right now, since white is the background, just delete to fill. Okay. These are kind of just my source masks. I can do the alt click to see what's going on with those. That was just for selecting. I can delete those now. I don't need those anymore. And save this out. Okay, so the ring's red now too. Okay, one last thing I wanted to show with masking was for text. It's basically the same thing, just with a lot of this text, it's still the actual smart shape, so I can scale it and it's going to keep 100% resolution. It's not going to be jagged whenever I try scaling it up and having it derez if I rasterize it or something like that. And okay, okay, so let's say I want to put text here, and I'm going to use my layer mask technique. So create a layer, I'll name it text new. Okay, that's the other text. Okay, text new. Then create a text, what you want to say. Just do test, capital T. This font is all capitals. Let's change it to a different one. Huh, okay. Funny. So we can rotate this one since it's upside down. This is going to be inside layer mask, so that way you don't have to kind of create a new layer and merge these two. Control E. I have to have both selected and Control E. Now it's rasterized, but if I scale it larger, it becomes jagged as crap. So you want to keep your text always in smart layers so it's still full resolution. And I'm going to actually do some wear here on the layer mask. So just add a quick mask here, start painting black. So let's say that they had a stencil but it starts wearing around the edge of this piece, this extruded piece. Just paint on the edge here. You can do it, I'm going to do it all the way around just in case I want to add a new text in the future. I wouldn't normally do that, but for this demo it's going to be helpful. So just show how it's worn out there. If I want to paint some back in, I can. Okay, and then on the actual text there you can add another mask for just overall wear. Got near the corners. Okay, so there we go. If I want to add another text, say come back to this in like that font. If I rasterize it, all this was built already. Say if I had done it the normal route, delete, and then I had rasterized it, and I just went and erased, didn't even know about masks. I'm just erasing here with 100% opacity, not 40. And then I built everything here. Thought that was cool, that I'm not going to need to come back to this ever. And then maybe the art direction changes, or I just don't like it anymore. And it needs to be a totally different font. Well, got to start back from scratch. You're going to start a new layer, paint that out again. Imagine if that's multiplied by maybe 10 or 15 decals over this model on the whole. That's going to add up. So go back to our layer mask technique, and then create a new font layer. Another thing with masking is you can actually turn off the linking. So click on this link, and now it's unlinked, so the mask is independent from the actual layer that's affecting. So if I want to move just the layer. See how the mask stays the same. Usually it's going to be linked, so if you move just that, it's going to be masked always on the edges. So let's just say that I want to keep this independent for now and change just the font style to something fun. Let's see, not too crazy. Okay, so what's cool about the layer mask is I've already got that built in around these edges. So even though it's a new font, let's change this back to dependent. So even though this is a new font, it's not going to affect this edge. So even if I wanted to scale this huge, let's go back to dependent or independent. Okay, scale the text only huge. See, it's still gonna not be around that element of the texture. So it's almost like it's a hard geo, not just a texture. It's kind of texturing to the next level. So let's keep it on that one. I want to paint some more areas out, chip it away, and paint some areas back in, just so you can get a sense of what the word is, because sometimes the word's going to get lost. You kind of want to tell what that is, or it's not going to make any sense. Okay, cool. So looks like I had more wear overall on this side, so I'm just going to kind of match that style. I can kind of turn the brush opacity down, say 20, and go back into black. Just erase out. Let's go to maybe like 60. Just do like an overall faded appearance. Okay, just to kind of match what else is going on. And then alright, so I'm going to save that out. And that's what we've got. See where the edge is deleted right here? It's kind of torn away. It's a little bit hard to see here, but that works great with the normals as well. And right, so that's our edited. I'm gonna have to change the old texture just to see the progress. I'm gonna turn all this off. I'm just right clicking later, change the color so you can see what I've changed. Let's go to orange. Okay, that should be everything. Oh, fade. Yeah. Orange, turn it off. Okay. Okay, this is our old model. This is our new model. Just a quick way to make changes. Can go back, I can change this color to blue if I wanted to. Let's say, go back into Photoshop. Go to my red layer, new red. Change that hue saturation layer. To blue. And it's going to affect everything on part of your model, not just this one little area or that one little area. You don't have to color pick every time. Okay. Blue, alright. Okay, old, saved over the old texture again. But there's that. If I want to go back and maybe, no, you know what, that's fine for now. I already had the text. Let me just save out everything. Actually, no, I don't really need to do that. I think I've already covered everything. Okay, just checking here. Yeah, let's just change the text just for fun. Okay, got my fade. I'm just going to turn everything back on. Text. Okay. And this time we're going to go back to the other text. And maybe you wouldn't want to have it be some kind of crazy orientation, not quite straight, so a little bit sideways. I'm still going to keep that edge. Everything else is what I want. I'm going to save that out. Okay, so there you go. We've got everything here. Everything changed quickly. Used masking, layer masking to change it from the original, which is all yellow, and to something where it has some wear on certain spots. And new text in areas. It really adds a lot. If you just have the normal model, it's not going to really be interesting, but when all these little differences really start adding variety and interest to it. So that's masking in Photoshop. If you liked what you saw, make sure to subscribe, as I have lots more tutorials in store for you guys. Also, if you want to know more about getting a job in video games, head over to MODogma.com.